different versions that we're testing on. We have like a dev board like this. We have a more like, actually what it's going to look like prototype. So working between these, sometimes the Flash would work, sometimes it wouldn't work. So actually getting into it after a long time of, trying every single thing I could think of, the final thing that it actually ended up being was the size property, so how large the Flash actually is. It's in hexadecimal, but I was doing in bytes, but it was supposed to be in bits.
Hey everyone, I'm Kaching, Fusion Community Manager, and I'm the host of this week's Shop Talk, a podcast series where we talk to makers, designers, builders, and machinists from shop to shop. Today, we talk to Ben and Noah, the founders of Prota Designs. Now, these two are really the epitome of an underdog story. They started from nothing, taught themselves everything they needed to build their products, the printed pad and the glyph. So we're going to jump in and learn a bit more about their journey, the grind it takes to create real hardware, and some of the learnings that they took away from this whole experience. So let's dive in. Okay, so let's actually start with your origin story, and let's learn a little bit about both of you. So what made you guys decide to start Proto Designs? Like what were your each of your backgrounds? Tell a little bit about yourself and how this all started.
Yeah, so at the time, we both actually met in like college during like a NASA internship.
Uh,
And during that time, I was working for like a business, someone who did business. But I was also going to college, and we met during this NASA internship, and we were like doing product management, and we're building like a Martian rover that was supposed to go on like a Martian simulated environment. We met coincidentally and were placed on the same team. And we kind of just, clicked really well in terms of like building products together or like just working together in general. And we'd work like late into the night during this internship all the way till like 12, or the internship technically usually ended around like 6 or 7.
mm,
But we would go all the way until like 12 at a cafe and just like grind all night until the
yeah.
chemistry was like already really there. And then the business came about when I decided to actually just drop out of college completely because I was talking to this business person and I was working under him. And I thought like, if I want to do business in the end, why should I, stick around in school when I could just go straight to this? Because I'm going to graduate anyways and then want to do this anyway. So why don't we just like, get to the good part?
Yeah.
And then so I had the idea of first like, initial company that didn't do or did well, but did like okay. Mag trays, which was like 3D printed trays. It was very interesting. It was a lot of like the first steps of business and how to even start and how to do it, fulfilling orders and scaling and stuff like that.
Mm,
And then I thought, I want to do something a little bit more that I enjoy or things that like, I like. And I was into like the mechanical keyboard hobby at the time. And I thought like, oh, like, why don't I make a macro pad? And the idea kind of came about of like always trying to fill this gap of like, what is problems that I see,
yeah.
that I can make something for people like myself or like others that are out there like me. And so I landed on this idea of like a macro pad. And in the beginning, I initially contracted like Noah to help me build the printed pad and basically write all the software and embedded code for it. And at the time, like for I think a good like couple of months, I started the company on my own. And then when I came back to him and I wanted him to work on the Glyph, I realized like this would actually make a lot of sense if we just work together as a partnership because
Mm,
we kind of want to complement each other's skills in the sense where we don't want to do the same exact thing, otherwise there'd be no point of a partnership.
yeah.
And I ended up doing a lot of like the design, hardware, and then like sales and marketing. And then Noah complemented my skills really well in the sense where she did a lot of the embedded code, software, and then compatibility with other softwares as well. And then you want to share your side?
Yeah, I mean, like he said, we first met in college and we were doing that NASA competition. That was really like, we met and we had a lot of good vibes, we
Yeah.
worked really well together. And then we actually started a club on campus together. So
Oh,
that was like, more working together, more running an organization. So, that both of those experiences compounded, and that's what really, just drove right into when we started this business together. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can see that Ben followed kind of the CEO mentality, like kind of, dropping
Yeah.
out of school to start their own business. That kind of was my next question. Did it come? It seemed like it came natural to both of you that Ben would be the CEO and then Noah you'd be the CTO in a sense, yeah.
Yeah, it came very naturally in that way, where it's like, oh, what do we need for the business? And then
Yeah.
we'd kind of see in like who's more has a higher level of expertise in this, and then we
Mm.
just kind of delegate that way.
Yeah, yeah, that's cool. That's awesome. Um, so what were some of those early challenges that you guys have faced, like while, starting up a business like this? Because, we hear lots of stories of startups trying to, make it or starting up. Uh, but a lot of times, they end up either falling apart or they go in different directions. What were some challenges you guys faced early on?
Yeah, I actually share a little bit about this. So,
Yeah.
um, really at the beginning of the company, I was still in school. I actually just graduated last year. So this whole time, I went through school, did a computer science degree. So
Mm.
for me, it was a lot about figuring out how to balance my time.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
you have to do coursework, and then if you actually want to build something outside of school, that takes a lot of dedication and time. So you specifically have to account for doing both things.
Yeah.
Making a business like this doesn't happen on accident. You really have to put in the time and the effort to make it work. So that was probably for me one of the big things.
Mm. How about you, Ben? Anything you wanna think call out there?
Uh, I think for a lot of early founders, there's like two things that a lot of them don't do typically, which is probably the first one is like, just starting or saying like, oh, this is way too hard to even learn or even
Mm.
do. And so it kind of stops them from wanting to even, just start the thing, or even they get to a certain point, then they think it's like, oh, this is way too hard to do. I think I'm just gonna like call it quits here.
Yeah.
And then the other thing that I think a lot of them don't do is they don't share what they're doing, because like they might be building for like 2 years in silence and they have like
Yeah.
no sense of support, no community, no nothing, and then they start running out of money, and then it's like, you basically don't have a company anymore.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of them should just start sharing super early. Like it's like one of the things we wish we did earlier, which is like sharing a lot of our stuff or videos. Even though we did it super early, I wish we should wait earlier in more raw videos, just how we even started, because it's like there are people out there that want to watch this type of thing,
Yeah.
and that can build a community, build an audience, and build people that will inevitably like love your product.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's a shift in mentality, right, of how you run a business. Because I think,
Yeah,
uh, I would say like before social media, or even when social media was taking off, I feel like there's a mentality of people running the business of like holding their secrets close to their hearts and like not trying to reveal too much, or when they're finally done, they make a big splash, kind of like, all the bigger companies that we know. But
yeah.
there's something to be said, like you said, to be sharing those stories early and build a community around it. And I think you guys have been doing that since the beginning, which is why it's so awesome to hear your story and to see where you guys are at right now.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's super cool. The one thing that you mentioned, I believe in your videos, or even on your about page, is you just said this. You've done a lot of learning and teaching as you go, right? Like you've learned a lot of skills and disciplines as you were doing it. What were some of those skills that you had to teach yourself?
I got it. Yeah, so that's a good question. For me, like I said, I do have a CS background. So right when we started working on the printed pad, I'd taken just a few courses in computer science before we actually started. So
Yeah.
I really had like not a huge understanding of computer science and coding as a whole. So as we went into it, I had just that little bit of knowledge, and I
Mm.
had to learn everything from scratch, basically. A lot is different. A lot more is different than you would think when you go into the embedded side of coding.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
There's a lot you have to learn. So I definitely went to like read a lot of Discord messages, read a lot of code on GitHub, watched a lot of YouTube videos. That really helped me get into like actually learning how all the skills on my own.
The products that you guys made, the printed pad and the Glyph, they're not simple like just, like a headphone stand or or like a cell phone stand. They are like complex electronics that require programming, but also hardware design and the encasing, the enclosures, and just all the mechanical design associated to it. So, Noah, you talked about the programming side, but what about the design side and like those type of skills? Like, was that something you were involved with more a Ben that was involved with?
Yeah, that was mostly Ben for that.
Yeah, so I handled all of the hardware
Okay.
and design aspect of both our products.
Yeah.
And like hardware was one of the things that I had no like level of expertise in whatsoever. So like initially I went to college for mechanical engineering and I was super into design. And
Okay.
even before that, so in terms of like self-teaching, before I even got to college, my girlfriend actually, she bought me my like first ever 3D printer. And it's like I
Oh, that's very
downloaded
nice of her. Yeah, that's
Autodesk
awesome.
Fusion 360 like immediately. And I was like, I wanted to start designing stuff. I want to start making stuff because like, you get into the hobby and you start wanting to print things that are already out there. And then you're like,
Mm,
what can I make for myself?
yeah.
And so I started teaching myself like very early on before I even got into college, just first like the design aspect. And then as I got into the company, doing the actual PCB was one of like the hardest things that like I had to teach myself
Mm,
because I'm basically starting from the ground up and trying to go from like basics to intermediate to like advanced. And I like don't even think I'm even that advanced yet. But a lot of it is just, t just actually sitting down, doing the work and answering the questions and finding resources that, is out there that is super valuable, but
mm,
doesn't seem like it to most people.
yeah.
Because a lot of these videos that are just super educational are like 2 to 3 hours long, but only have like, 10,000 views or even 2,000 views. So it's hard to find these type of videos. But you find them and you just binge watch the entire thing, or you read a whole lot of documentation. Or sometimes, like for example, one of the components that we had, it had like a 50-page design or a 50-page design guide and like a documentation of how to use it. And we'd have to go through every single one. Like, are we using the correct pins? Are we putting all the
Yeah.
correct components
Oh my
nearby
God.
it?
Yeah.
And like the principles of it. And part of that is also looking at other examples around you. There's a lot of like free resources like GitHub and people that are willing to share,
Mm,
what they've done so far. And then pulling that as an example of like what is standard, what is basic, and then how do you go from a level up here? And a lot of that is just, willing to do the work and actually just sit down and read
yeah.
a lot of these type of things. And especially for Noah, like he would tell me like an entire week, he would just spend pages and pages and hours just reading late into the night of like how to implement like this one piece of code that would work for our hardware and then putting it onto our design, and it all just works very coherently
Yeah.
most of the time, like we like to say. Yeah.
Very, very inspiring. The I think the message there is put in the time to do the work, right?
Mm.
Yeah.
They say that if you spend 10,000 hours on something, you go from, beginner to mastering it. Do you
Yeah.
guys feel like you spent 10,000 hours on what you're learning?
Feels like it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I feel like we spent a lot of time as well just figuring out like some of the stupidest bugs everywhere. So there's a
Yeah.
little bit of mastery and a little bit of like we shot ourselves in the foot.
Yeah, it's an art and science too, yeah, right? Like a lot
Yeah,
of this sometimes you don't know how it's gonna go and but then there's some art to it. So
yeah,
but very
yeah.
inspiring to hear. That's awesome.
Thank you.
Uh okay, so going back to the business for a bit, I mean, you guys are coming up and trying to get this product to market, and to get this product made, you had to had some kind of way to fund the manufacturing, the prototyping. Seeing that it's just you two kind of trying to make it, what was that? What was that like? Like, what did you guys need to do to get to where you are now?
So we kind of went the route that I feel like isn't really talked about a lot in the startup or entrepreneurial journey,
Yeah.
which is like just actually working a job, and then finding time after that job to actually build your product and fund the whole thing and find time to like create the business.
Mm,
And so in the very early stages, I worked first a part-time job And then after that, the moment I dropped out of college, I decided to, this was during developing the product. So during college, we fully launched the printed pad. And a little bit after I dropped out of college, I worked a part-time job to fund, um, actually, we didn't fully launch the printed pad yet at the time. We're still
Mhm.
developing, so I was putting a lot of money into developing these PCBs. A lot of like
Okay.
these early prototypes alone
Yeah.
were like, I think this one was about maybe 50 to like $100
Okay.
ish.
Yeah.
And we made a few of these. And what I would do is basically I would go to my part-time job, start developing, and then as I needed more time for the business, there was a little bit of an in-between stage where I had enough money to develop a little bit more and put more time into Prota. And then as we got closer to like, oh, we're still haven't released and we still need more money, I actually got a full-time job so that we could put more money in. You can imagine, packaging alone, they only do it
Yeah.
in the thousands of units per order. And so I ended up getting a full-time engineering job, even though I like dropped out of college, because a lot of the stuff that I taught myself, I was able to just show to the employer.
Yeah.
And on top of that, I actually, for the time being, I actually did Uber so we can make more money. So we didn't have to worry too much about like how much our prototypes would cost, how much packaging would cost, and everything.
Yeah.
And it was around that full time and also Uber at the same time and working on the business that we finally launched the printed pad and we
Mhm.
just pumped out a bunch of videos. And then it came to a point where the printed pad was doing so well where like I could finally leave my job
That's
and
awesome.
have the printed pad fully support itself. And then now we have the Glyph coming out soon.
Have you guys gone to any like shows or like tech shows to kind of promote the business, or has that not happened yet?
Not yet.
Yeah.
I really wanted to go to CES
Okay.
and then
Yeah. Yeah.
also the Autodesk
Oh, AU.
convention
Yeah.
this year, but
Yeah.
we got so busy with developing and prototyping, and also like building the website
That's right.
that
Yeah.
we had just genuinely no time. So I'm hoping next year, that'll be a year we go to like all these stuff.
That's cool. That is
Yeah.
awesome. Let's dive a little deeper into the products themselves. So you mentioned printed pad. So tell us a little bit about the pad. Like what does it do? What can you do? Its features, stuff like that.
Yeah, so right here, this is actually the printed pad, if you could see. So it's a 3 by 3 macro pad, and
Yeah.
it also has an OLED display. So with the display, there's actually three display modes. The first mode shows you what layer you're on. So to make this more usable, there's actually four layers that we have. So
Gotcha. Yeah.
yeah, instead of just having the 3 by 3 where you only have the 9 keys, you actually have four layers. So there's additional keys for macros. And to be able to know which layer you're on, that's why we have the OLED display. So it displays what exact layer you're on. And then the other display modes are just little fun things if you wanted to have them. We have like a little monkey animation, running
Yeah.
back and forth. And then the last one is whenever you press a key, it also shows like a monkey pressing a key with you. So
Oh,
those are
nice. Yeah.
pretty, yeah, those are pretty fun to
That's
make.
fun. Why is it called the printed pad?
Yeah, just actually, yeah, you could take this
Oh,
one.
yeah. So it's basically called the printed pad because, especially as like an early startup founder, we didn't have a lot of resources to just pour into like plastic mold, injection molding or
Uh,
CNC machining. So we're like, what's the next best step that we can take, which was 3D printing because you could just
yeah.
print it on demand. And then so we ended up printing out a lot of these, and people ended up really liking it. And then we're like, oh, let's just call this the printed pad because it's like 3D printed basically.
Gotcha. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. Uh, was there any specific design choices you've made to come up with the printed pad? Like, what were some of those decisions? Why only 9 buttons versus I don't know, like 12 or whatever? Are there some specific considerations you guys had around how you designed it?
I think there's probably two aspects that
Yeah.
we design this around, which is that I regularly like to go out and like do work at like a cafe or like I thought about also people that worked full time, like they would want to, be able to bring this to the office
Ah,
and back from home if they want to use it, like plug it in here and then go to the workplace and then plug it in there. And so ideally we wanted like a small form factor that was still like relatively slim, that could fit in like anybody's backpack. And so I would see like some of these other macro pads on the market, and they were like either like super bulky or this giant like number pad or this giant like 4x4 or even 5x5, and I
Yeah.
guess even crazier from there. And so like I just genuinely wanted something that could just fit super nicely on my hand and feel super natural to like the three main figures that I use.
Gotcha.
And then
Yeah.
also like just be able to take it to like school, work, and then just go home right after or anywhere where I want to do work as well.
Yeah. So mobility was a huge
Yeah.
aspect of it. Cool. And then from like a programming side, this is via GMK compatible.
Yeah, VIA and QMK.
Oh,
Yeah.
QMK. Yeah, that's right. Not GMK. GMK is
The keycap
the
brand.
keycap brand. That's right.
Got GMK right here.
There you go. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. And then from the printed pad, you mentioned you guys did so well with selling it. People loved it. Then you went on to start making the designing and manufacturing the glyph. Now, to tell us a little bit about the glyph. What is that? Yeah, what is that like? Why is it different? Yeah, love to hear that.
Yeah, so the Glyph is actually kind of like our like version 2 of the printed pad.
Mm.
And so you could tell like there's a lot of improvements that we made that we've gotten back feedback that we've gotten back from the printed pad, and actually listened to our customers. And so there we would hop on these calls with a lot of our customers. We
Oh,
did a bunch of interviews with them asking, so what would you want to see in the next one? What
yeah.
are some things that you would like? And some of the things they were telling us, which was like a slimmer design, a more durable case, or like an aluminum case instead of like printed, because they thought, oh, the product quality in terms of printed versus metal was better. Having like knobs, having more keys, and then also like wanting to see their macros on screen,
Oh,
but not have to have the trade-off of, so there's like other macro pads where they put a screen in their key, but then it ends up feeling like super mushy. And so we wanted to not sacrifice that trade-off of having it feel like really amazing, but also still being able to see what your macro does. So adding a screen so you could add custom icons to each macro. And basically just listening a lot to our customer feedback and asking like, what do you guys actually want? And then one of the biggest ones I almost forgot, which was wired and wireless.
okay,
A
yeah.
lot of people want to be able to, like a Master MX4 mouse or a
Mm,
Master MX3S, you want to be able to just connect it, and then wherever you go, you click a button and it pairs instantly.
yeah.
You take it to one device, you can either connect it wired or wired, and then you take it to another. You say you go to a cafe, you just hit a certain key, and then you're just connected. You take it to your home, and everything just works very seamless.
That's yeah, yeah, yeah. Going back to the kind of the getting the feedback from your customers, how do you organize that? Do you do that through social media? Do you send out surveys? Like what is that? What was that process for you?
The process is a little unstructured right now, but a huge amount of it is basically just like I'll get like a random DM of like someone saying
Yeah,
something,
yeah, okay,
and then
yeah.
I'm like, oh, I'm actually curious, like what do they actually think? Like we'll go into like these paragraph long conversations,
Yeah.
where it's like I check out his profile and it's like he's someone like a video editor or like sound design, and
Uh,
he's actually giving me this feedback like, oh, I would really love this. And then other times, it'll be like we have in our Discord community, we have a lot of members, and they're very outspoken about like what they would want in the product. And then we just reach out to them and say like, hey, are you free or open to call for like,
Love that. Yeah.
5 to 10 minutes and just set it up super quick and like, hey, what day are you free? Hop on call and then we'll both, just say, ask them a bunch of questions about what do you think about this right now? What do you would want to see? What are some features? And really validating what is common amongst all of them that they're saying.
Do you find do you find people using your products in like ways that you've never thought that they would use it, or are they mostly like kind of in line with who you're trying to sell this to?
A little bit of both.
Yeah.
We have a couple of people that like we've hopped on call before and they would tell us what they use it specifically for. And some of the most interesting ones is like people are using it to run full on scripts, run their
Uh,
servers, link to specific files. And initially we built it for people in the productivity space, that want to create like, keyboard shortcuts. But there are
Yeah.
some people out there that are very surprising that, just take this a complete another level,
Yeah.
and just program entire, functions into just a single macro.
With okay, so knowing that, how do you balance like priorities, like what you and Noah want for this product to be versus what the community wants? Because I feel like there's always that balance between like, okay, the community wants this a certain way, but we also have this vision. How do you balance that vision with feedback?
Yeah, I think, us ourselves, we're really building this product for us and the community. So
Yeah.
we're always going to be the first testers. So as we're using it and, playing with what actually we're using it for, what features we want, that does drive a lot of the initial like, oh yeah, we need, it to be ergonomic. We need, it to feel good when you're actually using the encoders and pushing all the buttons.
Hmm.
That really like is like the forefront driver, but we definitely think that like the community feedback also aligns with what we want with the product because
Yeah.
we're all designers, productivity people, and it's like everything that they want really a lot of it aligns with what we want. I think kind of like you said, we have to be careful with we can't just do everything everyone says because there are trade-offs when you're actually developing.
Yeah.
With certain features you want to add, maybe the cost is too high for certain things. So I think it's, just keeping in mind like, yes, you want to add all the features you want, but just get the core ones that people want and you yourself want, and then work from there.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Love that. Yeah. Totally makes sense. Let's get back to the glyph. I want to know a little more about the glyph. So, is there more keys now on the glyph?
Yes. Yeah. So initially the printed pattern was a 3x3,
Yep.
and then now this is a 4x4 with two knobs, a screen, and then you have two buttons that will control the screen.
Ooh. Okay. There's two
Yeah.
knobs now. And the screen is color, if I'm mistaken.
Yes.
And color
Yes.
screen, bigger color screen.
Yeah.
The enclosure is now aluminum, correct?
Yes.
Yes. What was the decision to go to from 3D printed enclosure to aluminum enclosure?
I think there's two aspects to that led that decision, which was first being, I am like a huge guy in the keyboard community in the sense
Yeah.
where, I just love keyboards. I've built like a decent amount of them. And like just seeing these designs with like actual aluminum in them was such a huge shocker to me.
Yeah.
But it made the quality feel so much different from any keyboard that I've ever used before.
Mm.
And I thought I would love to just bring that to macro pads and a lot more consumer devices that are a bit more like mainstream to everyday life instead of just the gamer, and more so to the people that do productivity. And then the other decision was just thinking about the durability aspect. Like
Yeah.
if you were to bring this, you would want it to be light enough to be able to, carry it around and it doesn't feel like a huge weight in your backpack. If we went stainless steel, that would have like been super heavy.
Mhm.
But we wanted it to be light, but also still super strong. And scratch resistant in the sense where like, you don't want to, for example, our printed pad, if you just throw it in your backpack without a case, it will probably get scratches bumping around with like your computer or dropping it on the floor and things like that.
Yeah.
With something that's a little bit more aluminum, right? It'll bump against like everything and it will hardly come out with a scratch. And I kind of think of it in the aspect of like the iPhone, right? People a lot ask why make it aluminum, and if you stop to think about it, a lot of phones today are built with aluminum and then maybe have like the glass screen on top, but the most parts that interface with the most surfaces
Yeah.
are made of aluminum to be able to withstand that type of durability while still being light and be able to just carry around every day.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely makes it feel more premium, more durable for sure. I was gonna ask you about the manufacturing. So, I saw that in one of your videos, you actually showed the raw enclosure milled out with the tool paths and everything. What was that? Like, how did you get that made? What was that process like?
So we work very closely with a big manufacturer. And a lot of people think, oh, you have to, produce 1,000 samples to or 1,000 units to even get like a sample.
Mm,
But the process usually is just you just reach out and you find, a manufacturer that really suits you or communicates really well, makes good products. You check their quality, you check their
yeah.
factory. And so this was one that I had reached out to. And I found they actually make really good quality like materials and products that they send out.
Mm,
And so I reached out to them. I was like, hey, can you make a sample for this? And I sent them my design. They got back to me with a quote. And then very simply like that, I sent it off, paid a certain amount, and then had it sent right back to me in a matter of like 2 weeks after the
that's
design was
awesome.
finished.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How do you go about finding a manufacturer like that? Because I think when people think about, oh, okay, I've got the design and I want something made, it's daunting for a lot to even know where to start. Like, where do I go? Do I just Google search like, oh, how do I get my parts machined or whatnot? So how did you choose that manufacturer opposed to every like all the other ones?
So the process we go about, especially with choosing a manufacturer, is typically we will do a couple checks. And finding them specifically, we'll mostly just use like Google or like Alibaba. Alibaba
Okay,
is
yeah.
really good for finding really good manufacturers. And then sometimes Google, you'll find a couple manufacturers in the US especially.
Mm,
And I will just message thousands of them. Like I'll take one day, and I'll send them a list of all of my requirements of what I want. And it kind of is like a three-step process. I'll send them a list of requirements, all that I want, and see like what can they quote me for. Because the biggest thing is
gotcha.
obviously
Yeah.
like bottom line. If your bottom line price is too high, it's going to be really hard to produce a product.
Yeah.
And then the next step after they say, yes, I can produce this, is show me samples. Show me what do you
Mm,
have.
yeah.
Like I want to see examples that you've done that are similar to this and how good is the quality. And they would send me these videos and I'd go through every single one. And then I would go line by line each manufacturer, like, okay, this one passed the first two tests, this one passed the first two tests.
Yeah.
And then it would finally get to the final like check for me, especially, is communication. And I think
Mm,
this is
yeah.
really important because like they might just take your money and then not contact you for like a whole month.
Yeah.
So after the first two, which is like they can do this, and then second, they do really good quality. The third is how well do they communicate, and are they proactive contacting me, or
Yeah.
do I have to hunt them down? And so a lot of our manufacturers, they actually reach out to me like almost every other week saying, hey, how's the project going? Like what any updates, when is your launch day? And they'll ask me like a lot of questions. And then I guess the fourth and final, which would be a really good way to know after you've already paid the manufacturer, how good quality of work that they do is how well they communicate after you've already paid them.
Mm,
And so I'll get manufacturers, some where like they won't even say anything and they'll just send me a product immediately after or a sample immediately after. And I have our really good manufacturer, which is the one that made the metal cases. She will actually go ahead and message me asking for even more details, even after I've sent her my requirements of
yeah.
things that I don't even know about. And so she wants to run this by me and even make sure that some of the simplest details, like for example, what grit to sandblast the aluminum. There's a typical standard that a lot of them do, and they'll just charge you any price. But she went ahead and above and beyond sent me pictures like, oh, there's these different types of sandblasting grits that you can use. Like, which one would you like? Here's what we typically do for our clients. And this is like after I've already sent my design, I've already sent my requirements. She'll ask even more questions
Yeah.
in the midst of the process, which is really good to have for a manufacturer.
Yeah. I mean, what you're saying is it's important to have that mutual partnership. It doesn't
Yeah,
feel like a transaction, but more of a relationship, right? Between
yeah.
you guys and the
And
manufacturer.
communication is so huge, especially with
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Okay. Yes. That makes a lot of sense. And that's
Yeah,
why the glyph looks like that, because
yeah.
it looks awesome, man.
Looks amazing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's so cool. Let's get to kind of the community building aspect of what you guys are doing. So, the first time I saw or became aware of Prota Designs is through one of your videos, I think it was the one where you basically told your whole story of like this is how we started, right? Like,
1 year ago, we started a tech company to make the best macropad with zero experience.
and I think in today's day and age of storytelling and also just content on social, that type of content has really resonated, not only with with like our community, but with a lot of the folks that are kind of in that space. How have you used platforms like Instagram and TikTok to tell your story? Like what are some things that you've done to try to continue to drive that that engagement with your community?
I think some of the biggest things to drive the engagement with our community is, sharing our story that's so similar to so many other people out there.
Yeah.
A lot of the DMs that we get are from people saying like, how do I do this? Or like, what would you recommend for this? And so for building this community specifically, it's a lot of just showing our raw story,
Yeah.
for people exactly like us. And the people that would want to join our community are obviously like also like us that probably do design, that probably do hardware, that
Mm.
probably do embedded systems, or probably code, and especially with that, we find little pockets where people don't like to talk too much about the technical aspect. And it's so underserved and it makes me so sad because like there's some videos that are just so technical that I just fall in love with and I just like subscribe and
Yeah.
follow immediately.
Yeah.
And so we kind of try and bring both aspects of the storytelling and then also the teaching in the sense where like, it's a super technical aspect of like, oh, you should do this, or here's what we did, or here's the exact type of material, or here's how we wrote the code for this specific thing.
Yeah.
And as much as you would think that might be boring to some people, there's a lot of people that really enjoy that, and love just the both storytelling and teaching aspect of that.
I think it's really cool that you guys also talk about your mistakes. Maybe this is a question for Noah. Like, what were some of those technical challenges that you, or if there's one specific like technical challenge that you came across that you really learned from and grew from that?
Mm.
Anything that come to mind?
Yeah, so I could give you a pretty funny story looking back
Yeah.
at how it happened. So this was with developing Glyph. One of the things that we're including that we didn't have on the printed pad is external flash memory. Because we're doing a lot of unique stuff with our display, we actually need more storage to actually have different image assets. So that's why we have external flash. So in setting up the external flash, that was at the beginning with certain samples and certain we have different versions that we're testing on. We have like a dev board like this. We
Uh-huh.
have a more like, actually what it's going to look like prototype. So working between these, sometimes the flash would work, sometimes it wouldn't work. So really debugging that was probably,
Mm.
that was a really long process, a difficult thing. So actually getting into it after a long time of, trying every single thing I could think of, asking, different Discord communities, oh, what could it be? Reading forums, looking up on Google, even asking AI for certain things, even though it's, not the greatest at embedded systems.
Uh,
The final thing that it actually ended up being was the size properties, so how large the flash actually is,
mm.
how many megabytes. It's in hexadecimal, but I was doing in bytes, but it was supposed to be in bits. So it was only
Yeah.
the size was defined as 1/8 the size of it actually was. So that's why there's like certain like flash write and flash read errors happening. So
Uh,
that was a very big technical challenge that, kind of scary
Yeah.
looking back, but those things happen when you're developing.
And that's like months and months of work. Like I'm getting like DMs from Noah, him sending me paragraphs with the progress. Like I tried this, and this, and it's like a list of like 100 things. And it's like, oh, the flash is still not working. And I remember the message that he sent me. It was crazy. He was like, oh yeah, we were using bits and not bytes. And it was like that, like we
yeah.
spent like months on this, like days where he would drive all the way to my place, and we would just go straight into like all the way till 2 a.m. or like late in the night, just trying to figure out what is the
Oh
problem.
my
Like, is it
God.
hardware? Is it coding? Like, am I doing something wrong? Is he doing like what is it, And then just a simple line of code.
It's that NASA's goof where there was
Yeah.
inches
Yeah,
versus millimeters. It's
yeah,
basically like that. That's great. Oh man, what a
uh,
story. It's
yeah,
funny because I think like I feel like lots of companies go through that, or even just
yeah,
like folks trying to come up with a product. It's those details
yeah,
that catches you. Yeah, no, that's a
Yeah.
very, very interesting story. Love that. Okay, let's get back to the glyph. Now, where are you at with the glyph? I think you're almost ready for pre-orders. Am I correct?
Yeah.
So I'll talk a little bit about our progress so far.
Okay.
Right now, we're actually basing our firmware on ZMK firmware. So
Mm,
QMK is like the
yeah.
popular one a lot of people know, but ZMK is actually a new one a few years ago that was developed. So
Better battery management, right? Is that what
yes,
I
yes,
hear?
battery management, and it lets you do Bluetooth. Like
Ah,
with
okay.
QMK with the licensing, Bluetooth is like hard to do. You have to have like an external chip and write your own code for that. But the way ZMK does it, it actually a lot of it is open source. Basically, all of it's open source. So Bluetooth is really easy. So that's why we went that way. But what we're doing now, so all of the like the keyboard functionality works. We have macros working. The thing we're working towards now is actually getting the display fully fleshed out.
Mm,
Right now we have in this build, there are a couple builds that we've been going through. We have two different widgets working right now, and that's a one that shows what all the keys do. So it's kind of hard to see, but right here we have icons,
mm.
and they represent what each key does, and it corresponds to each layer. So if I change the layer, it actually updates the icons, so you know what the keys do. And then we also have a time widget, which just shows the time. We're going to show the date in the future. One widget that we're going to add is a media widget. So it's going to show what the current media is on your computer. So if
Nice,
you're
yeah.
listening to Spotify or watching a YouTube video, it's going to show that on the display. So right now we're really working towards fleshing out the display. We have a lot of the base already done, but just to make it seamless and get the UX right and get the basically everything working and feeling good, that's what we're working towards now.
Awesome. Awesome. And then so when is the pre-order?
Pre-order happens October 14th. Yeah,
Okay.
so from there, we'll open pre-orders,
Yeah.
and then people will order, and then there'll be a little bit of a waiting period before it actually ships, and then it will go into production and then ship out, and then probably a beta test rate a little bit in between, but
I
yeah,
see.
that's about it.
Awesome, man. Great. Well, Ben, Noah, thank you so much for talking to us.
Thank you for having
And
Yeah,
us.
yeah,
thank you.
but best of luck, and we'll
Been
see you
fun
guys
talking
out
with you.
there. Yeah.
Thank
All
you.
right, thank you.
Hey everyone, Kaching here. If you are a designer, builder, or maker and you want to be a part of this podcast, we'd love to hear from you. The email is in the video description below, so please introduce yourself and let's connect. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to our YouTube channel and stay up to date with all things ShopTalk. If you're ready to try Fusion for yourself, find the link in our descriptions.